we're seeing in the US, consumers saying that the utility stock, which is the payments laws, actually reducing that. They're undervaluing the market. So marketing red saw that maybe the early sign that the market is going to shift under the estimate into the red.
Francis,
I think actually going up, oil going up, and they'll find the DSF water for the big
we're announcing all back. Thank you very much. Coming up, a stock market around the bond market, expecting a global recession, and fixed income strategies. It's good. Same round.
These mics are hot. Just okay.
Picking up stuff.
No one's really listening. But.
Jane, okay. Very good. Business news, so we're gonna probably gonna be doing a headline and a little market update. Very good. Thank you.
That might be still last.
The business news continues on BNN.CA at 167. Hello again, I'm Greg Bell. Leading our top stories this hour. Price of crude oil period lost touching $80 per barrel for the first time in 2.5 years. Oil came under renewed pressure about an hour ago. Invested show stockpiles jumping by 8.9 million barrels. That's 3 times expected. The manufacturers see a tumble at the fastest rate in more than 5 years in August. London vehicle purchases was the biggest contributor, 3.3% drop. Automobiles were the driver of the straight month of gains in factory sales. China saying their record in July. Stack soared past 2 expectations in the third quarter, both profit and revenue, and with volume consensus, saying the of a 26% surge in investment revenue. Banks also hiking its dividend by 5 cents to 60 cents per share. Markets to see what's happening right now in Toronto, holding on to that triple-digit gain, 165 points per level. Tended to go up yesterday. It closed 14,030. Our 10% crush in Toronto. Energy leading the way. The price of crude oil is only at the 80 mark. Below it, that's at $80 or $80. And cents still at the price in the long term, but investors are willing to get back into the sectors. Really, right now, energy and showing strong still get today trading. Telecom is being negative. They're showing buying for energy strong. So that was industrial and 2%. Right now in Toronto, some maybe not energy space. Also, TV Bank, always have people right in. TV being negative, it is split in a positive territory, 3%. And well, one of the things downside of the positive. Quick look at the Lumi's doing this year. The U.S. dollar and the 3.83 cents. It was already profit decide whether it be negative or positive. You can see the chat from the new now or another one towards the time right now, around a third of a percent. Now it looks like kind of the same kind of action right now. And we popped to the year, popped to the territory. Now 2074, we're pulling it back again. But we see loss of percent, 2% today, so not 4%, not even look at gold stocks, even though and stock market pressure today, some of the people's compensation give us not to say that, but generally the selling we're seeing in Europe and gold is stronger, it's down to 1.6. Cash flow that equity market, thanks to the safety of bonds, that's driving down yields the big way. And for US 10-year treasury rate, moving at 2%, that's the volume of about 2% rate. Now we're joined from Jersey City by St. at Lord. Thank you for joining us. I understand you said when you look at the bond market, basically the pricing in the recession, you give us some people in the room, what is pricing in the recession? I don't know you know what's going on. Let's break it down by region. Okay, pretty this morning, the U.S. industrial production, retail sales earlier in the week. They're really the Europe sort of pressures abroad coming to back in one of the news that come out this morning, as speakers, Mr. Bullard saying that perhaps we should, we're expecting it to wrap up, saying perhaps we thought that if we pressure to wrap up their bottom line just yet. I just saw that now, or yes, about 20 points on that. But if they really came out, we're not going to hold up because it's possible to fall. Okay, where do you see the rates moving on? You know, 30 seconds of you get everything you just 1.5 minutes. What does the bond investor do in this one? Thank you for the time, Dan. You're inside Jane. Stay around. Fixing strategy at the floor. Coming up, you're going to just be our trading up every 17%. This is coming in to sell off some of the share assets for $5.4 billion. Okay, so one, two, is
How's it going?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
everything working?
No,
You never know until you do it.
almost.
That's why you test everything and shop everything, black everything, up the laptop.
Yeah, and then you get out in the field.
Yeah.
Wirelessly? No, because this is the screenshot computer, so it needs. Really? You're talking. You know what? Could you?
The goals is I dropped using this computer.
Hey, when I got this guy is
Yeah, you want to steal Paulina's?
I was around like 3 weeks ago, and the other day, it was beautiful green, and they had that type of one that's even I was, I worked, I was, yeah, I was. All right, 20 seconds, but actually, shares of Chesapeake Energy have doubled 17%. That's not the largest natural gas producer now. $5.4 billion deal. That's up the shale assets. It's the largest divestment. See some more details back to Calgary and BNN gave us for taking the 1,770%. Right.
Oh.
What does it mean for satisfactory?
I'm here. Where do you want me?
Fascinating. Oh, thanks for that, Jameson. And this is Jameson Burko, our Western Bureau. Mark Bunting is going to join us now with some of the day's big market movers. Mark, you're looking at some reversal pairs.
Right, as well, we can see it with panic here early in the session, that we cut that date for any reversal, and actually very happy about it. It is the heaviest of the selling pressure overall. That's difficult to know, but again, some of these trends have been reversing. Let's look at the 10-year U.S. Treasury, where we saw the yield yesterday go below 2%. Here's an ETF that tracks the 10-year and some other treasuries as well. And as we see here, it rose sharply early in the session yesterday, so that was going up. The yield fell below 2%, but then that reversed and it continued to fall, and the yields are moving higher. Also with the U.S. dollar, that of course has seen a lot of strength. The USD is an ETF. It tracks it against a basket of currencies. This can't go up forever, so we have seen some of the gains reverse here. It was higher yesterday, higher today as well, but it's moving a little bit lower. What about IWM? This tracks the Russell 2000.
Small cap, right? First to start selling, but now I think that's
Yeah, it's down as much as 13%. Many thought that the small caps were leading the rest of the market into correction territory, and they turned out to be right. But again, a reversal yesterday, and you see here over the course of 2 days continuing to move higher. Same thing with the Dow Transports. Transports in correction territory, down as much as 11%. Again, over a 2-day graph, we're seeing these trends starting to reverse now. Everybody wants to know about energy. How about the XEG? Fell as much as 26% from the peak. And we don't have to tell energy investors how they've done with their shares. But this one, sorry, you know what? There's the VIX. We just got the VIX here. This one is starting to move in the opposite direction. Some of the damage being unwound. Is it over? Hard to know. Could be a so-called dead cat bounce, but for the time being, a lot of pressure being
And to bring up our doom, bringing some salvation today. Well, market call underway in just about 10 minutes.
We're talking about the real estate investment trust with Michael Basagi from Century, and he's still pretty bullish. He says REITs generally have had a pretty good year, and the conditions are right. The rates are still low. A lot of these companies are pumping out a lot of cash flow, and we'll talk to Michael shortly.
Great show. We'll be handed off to you in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks.
Bye, Mark. All right, coming up, we're only about 10 minutes away from Apple's next big reveal. Your full preview of what to expect after this quick break.
As well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if I have that everything, I'll go and get it. Oh, sorry, but well, especially because I'll go and get it tonight.
Got it, thanks.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember, you know, a certain name.
Then who?
This to there is the hardest one.
This to there.
Or this one anyway, actually. Especially at the beginning of the show when you start there and then you walk. Because you're arming and you start the motor and it always kicks a bit, so it's hard. Any confidence?
Yeah, that's it. And self-confidence.
Color monitor? Oh, yes.
So what do they want to show on this monitor? You know, to be after this, or you want to show this next?
We didn't use a copy of our last time, did we?
Yeah, we had something up here.
So is it Anastasia's?
I think so. I think that's not working. I guess we need to reboot it.
Can I help you guys? Oh, he's over there.
All right, I'm out.
George. Yeah. I'm going to reboot that plasma just to get a confidence shot. It's already logged in to Google Chat for the driver.
TV stuff.
Apparently need a
What are you
mic.
doing with the plasma again? Once more? Do this? What do you want on there? This?
Yeah, mirrored with that screen
Yeah.
the whole time.
We have to restart the computer. It's not working.
Then I guess we can't do it. I don't have an IFB. Would you really grab me my IFB from my desk? Thank you. And my makeup puff that's there as well, it's black. Thank you. It's not, it won't automatically mirror without, yeah, but it also has to, you have to go into the control panel.
Last time we had to restart the computer to get a.
Yeah, we can't restart it now.
That's the problem with doing a show on the set that you're trying to set up on.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the internet working on here?
The internet does appear to be working, yes. I'll be on camera 4, gotcha. Okay, I can't hear him. I need it. Thank you. Is there an IFB for me?
Yeah.
You coming to say hi? My microphone is guest 2, I'm told, right?
Okay, so plug into guest 2. Here. Okay. Watch your ear.
Yeah.
You hearing anything?
Yep.
So guest 2. Guest.
I can hear audio.
Okay, he's on.
Hainsworth mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Can't see the shot.
I can't set this webcam.
Uh-oh, who did we lose? Did we lose Amber? We lost Amber. Amber's PC is dead. That doesn't look right at all.
Sure. Yeah.
That's mine.
Right here. Okay, there it goes. It's going. Okay,
Okay.
so we're gonna have this blue power cord. It's not working, so we're gonna have to steal a power cord from the other side. This isn't working.
You take one from, do you have the laptop on the other side?
We have to take.
Yeah. How much battery's on there?
There's nothing.
It's dead?
What's that?
So
It's not working on their website right now? What's the issue? Okay, but we're still on BNN.CA.
Yeah, so it's affecting the website, but you guys go as normal.
Okay,
And,
your computer died. All right. Yeah.
You got any problem?
No, I think they dropped me.
Have a chair?
You want to share, eh? It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's-
but mine is not. Okay. Amber seems to be back in it.
That's okay. That's fine. It's impossible to like, troubleshoot.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so what do you want? We are T-minus 60 seconds to launch. Coming up in less than 60 seconds. Audio quality is okay? You can hear me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't have my shot. That's because you've got
Let me know
this.
how the watch helps.
How's that?
What do you mean?
Is that good? Okay. Yep. And how are you?
I don't think I have any connections of sorts.
No, you're good.
I don't know why.
Punch them in.
Okay.
We're gonna have to wait for them.
There you go. And her shot's okay? Can we get a mic check from you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right.
Why?
Are we ready to go?
Email.
What do
Yeah.
you say we make this happen?
Let's do
Just gotta get
this.
the thumbs up from the Sultan and Webb. We're good to go?
Thank you so much.
Okay, not a problem. We can go without.
We're still having problems on our end, Michael. It's,
Watch us, okay?
But we are live on BNN.CA, so we can go. All right, count us in. Yep.
4, 3, 2.
Welcome to BNN's second live show here at the Google Hangouts as we take a closer look at what Apple is bringing to the table this time around. Amber Kanwar, as she was last time, is here again. And this time, everybody seems to be talking about iPads, but that's not what us business nerds want to talk about.
No, this will be the least exciting event that we've ever covered, if that's all we get. We're hoping that there's a big reveal when it comes to Apple Pay, and maybe that now famous phrase, and one more thing,
Yes.
will lead us into something that we haven't yet seen before. But given how much really came out the last month, what we're really looking for, Michael, is some clarity on how exciting of an opportunity Apple Pay actually is and when it will officially roll out.
Now, officially, we know nothing at this point. Apple is getting ready to take to the stage in Cupertino, California right now, and we will bring you the street-level reaction to this as well as what's going on the Intertron, but we know that this is likely to be an iPad-based event because we got a leaked image. We've got it right here. It's not just the iPad Air 2 that they're apparently going to be coming out with, but also the iPad Mini, and we'll throw that in for you as well. And this is a refresh.
Yeah, it's not chump change, though. It's not like the iPods, which are less important to Apple than they ever have been. You know, iPads are still generating about 20% of all sales for Apple. They sold about, how much was it? 150 million of these iPads in 2015. So this is an important category for them. But you're right, it's just an iteration at this point. So we are looking for something else, that wow factor. And at this point, the wow factor has actually been one of Apple's other products, and that is unveiling. You know, that's sort of now
They're things.
it's a thing. It's tradition. They have a big speech. It lasts 88 minutes. Interesting. TikTok actually spent way less time on stage than Steve Jobs ever did.
Oh, I wonder what that's all about.
Yes, I know. Actually, my boy Craig Federighi, I'm talking about him
Yeah.
all the time. He's the software guy. Tim Cook called him his Superman. We first really saw him back in June when they did the big software unveil. Ford did an interesting study. How many laps each of the executives get? Craig Federighi gets 32 outbursts of laughter per hour. Only 17.
Really?
I think my crush on Craig is right on.
Well, it took you a while to figure out how to pronounce his name, or at least I know it did me.
Yeah. Well, the spelling threw me off. GHMA.
So the event itself is going to be carried on Apple's servers. We are going to be looking at what the nerd alumni have to say about this. Gizmodo is one of the websites for that sort of thing. So we'll be keeping an eye on what they have to say, among others. And when it comes down to it, the leak, which I can show you here, particularly the iPad 2, one of the biggest advancements as far as concerned is that it's going to get the fingerprint, touch ID, as we call it. But as we know, that is the thin edge to the wedge to actually using your iOS device to buy things.
But can you imagine picking up your iPad at the grocery store?
Have you not been to any event where you want to take a picture? There's always that one person who's standing there with their big iPad trying to take pictures.
I won't believe it until there's a selfie device for the iPad, not just those phones. But you know, Apple unveiled those massive screens, and there was no shortage of controversy around size, bend gauge, hair gauge. It'll be interesting to see whether Tim addresses that head on. Or, you know, if now that they have this bigger phone that is really a cross between a smartphone and a tablet, is the iPad.
Or maybe we're also going to get that one next big thing, and it'll be Apple TV, finally.
Yeah, they've been saying for a long time that Apple TV is not sort of the unwanted child of the Apple ecosystem, that they do care about it. They haven't made any adjustments or any innovations since 2012. So they keep saying it's something they're thinking about, but you're right, they haven't come out with anything on that front.
In Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs, one of the big things that was in that book at the end, is that Steve lay on his deathbed, he said that he thought he had finally cracked TV.
Did he tell anybody?
That's the thing. We don't know exactly what that means. We do think it means is not TV itself. You can make a shiny TV, but how you interact with that television. And with the advancements that have been made in Siri as an option for talking to your phone instead of punching something in, the belief is that you would just talk to your television. I've seen this already to a lesser degree on the Xbox. The new Xbox One has that voice command capability.
In fact, Yosemite, that is the new software that's coming out, when they highlighted it back in June, they had that feature, that was that interactive feature. So one of the examples was if I want to watch Oscar-nominated film from 2004, I just have to type that in to my interactive device that's hooked up to my television, and it will automatically populate a list of these movies, and you can kind of select from the iTunes. So they have already made ways to make it a little bit more interactive, to include search functions, to be more viewable based on exactly what you want. The voice component would be an interesting addition.
Tim Cook is now on the stage right now, and one of the big things they're talking about is the introduction of the iPhone in China. This is perhaps one of the last big markets for Apple to really make some serious inroads. We know that BlackBerry had very hard into China. You know that Beijing had their own version of BlackBerry, the Redberry, as an attempt to ensure that the technology that the Chinese use is Chinese technology. That really has advanced substantially, and with a country that is working so hard at bringing a middle-class experience to a country that really doesn't have a lot of experience with that. Western gadgets, Western toys, that is one of the shoehorn ways to make that happen. And Apple getting into that part of the world is critical.
And there's plenty of competition, though. And we learned from Samsung. Samsung's been taking a huge hit, not only from Apple, but from a lot of these cheaper players that are coming out of China. Remember, these are still expensive phones. Apple will still live in the high-end market. And let's face it, while there are more and more rich coming out of China, the big demand, the big consumer-driven demand is still coming from lower to middle class. Their first step into the smartphone market will likely be from those two players.
They're talking now about the iPhone itself and the Apple component too, talking about this as easy, secure, and private way to pay. This was something that really took the streets by surprise. That Apple did not want to go down the same path that Google did. Google wants to know everything about you that could possibly ever exist. And part of that was keeping on top of what you're buying, what you're selling. But with the new iOS that came with the new iPhone, and the new Apple Pay technology, they went to great lengths to point out that they do not know anything about your purchase whatsoever. When you make a purchase on Apple Pay, Apple doesn't know what you bought. Apple doesn't know how much you spent. It doesn't get the opportunity to keep any of that information.
And that's important because remember at the time that was announced, Apple was dealing with a privacy crisis where a whole host of photos had been hacked into from the iCloud. So there was sort of a crisis in terms of, consumer trust, and that does seem to be playing a bigger and bigger role. We've seen huge retail giants hit by the issue of trust, Target, Home Depot. So it is becoming very apparent that people like you and I aren't going to sit idly by while our data is taken and sold off, and we're more likely to buy from somebody who is going to great lengths to protect that information.
As part of the Apple Pay system, they've just announced 500 new banks have signed on board in addition to all three of the major credit card companies. They will now be involved in this. When they launched the new iPhone 6, was about a month ago or so, they had gone to great lengths to say that there were a lot of merchants involved. 200,000 merchants were involved in this. And what was interesting to me was that we didn't get a lot of detail about them specifically. What we did learn, though, is that of the 200,000, there will be a variety of companies, including Panera Bread.
Yeah.
And now we think we know that they'll launch this officially, and we'll find out in a moment. Yes, October 20th, because as 9 to 5 Mac pointed out, among the companies that would be involved, a memo went out from Panera Bread saying that their bakery cafes have installed Verifone systems, and that's a partner of the iPhone Apple Pay system, and that with the release of Apple Pay, there'll be a 1-minute e-learning video for everyone who works there. We've got the cashier talking points to help the cashiers understand it all, and that's all coming out on the 20th.
That's going to be very crucial, is people actually knowing how to use the device on the service end. And I say that because I got free valet parking at a place, and that's great, but they didn't know how to process the gift certificate that I was given. And I got fed up, and I ended up just paying because you don't want to wait around for that. And those early moments of Apple Pay, that's going to be very critical, at least in the beginning. So the launch on Monday, that's very quick, and I don't think that we were expecting that. I think it's something that investors will be very pleased with, because they see that as the next big thing for Apple. Not a product, not a category killer in the way the iPhone was, or, there's still skepticism about the Apple Watch, but Apple Pay getting going, I think that's pretty significant.
What is also significant is the company's ability to roll that out and have an adoption that is greater than just Apple products. To get a merchant on board, that merchant needs to know that they'll have customers coming in the door who have more than just an iPhone. They also have maybe they have a Google Android-based device, which is interesting because it was Google and the Android operating system that really led the charge with this NFC chip, the Near Field Communications chip, that made it possible to do these mobile transactions in the first place, but very few retailers actually came on board with that. But once you've got Apple, who has by far not the biggest market share in this space, not only signed on to it, but the ability for the Verifone system to work with Google Pay and a bunch of others as well, this is that thin edge of the wedge to get the retailer on board.
Exactly, and you look at the sales numbers that Apple was able to post the iPhone 6, what was it, over 10 million, I believe, phones sold in 3 days, and all of those new phones had that NFC chip. So at least that many people are ready to go on that platform. And with the fast rollout, those that didn't buy when it was first available will it will likely prompt them to go out and buy a new device. Because remember, you can't use Apple Pay unless you have the new devices.
Right. If you have an iPhone 5S, which does have the fingerprint reader, you're fine, but it doesn't have the NFC built into it, so you're going to be relying on an internet-based connection. And so the fear is that we're not going to see the same kind of security.
You're still talking about Apple Watch as well. They've developed a app kit so that apps can start to be developed on the Apple Watch, and that's rolling out next month. And as we know, Michael, apps are key to the stickiness that is Apple. The iPhone would not be as successful as it is today were it not for the thousands of games and hopefully more useful apps that you can use.
Do you want an iWatch? We
No.
talked a little bit about this. You don't want an iWatch. Why not?
I just don't know that I need an iWatch. I don't know what problem in my life it would solve. In fact, at a time, I don't need a watch because, and we've talked about this, because iPhone took away the need, or smartphones took away the need for a watch because you could easily see that on your phone. So it doesn't, I don't have an immediate need for it the way I did when the iPad came out. Maybe they'll be able to drive sales. They do have that gold one, and apparently there's a gold iPad that is set to be unveiled today as well.
Oh, it's the Kim Kardashian model, is it?
Are we calling it that? Then I can't like it. You've alienated me.
I've ruined it for you, have I? Look at this, the stats that we're following this on Engadget as well here. The stats of
That's my boy Craig.
Installed base for the iOS was fascinating to me. Let's see if I can pull that back up. They are tweeting like crazy right now. It's okay. We'll see if we can find that a little bit later on. But while they're moving on to the other features like the Apple Watch, etc., what's interesting to me is this: the fact that they've stopped talking about iWatches and iThis and that. And this logo, and this is my own personal prediction, is that you're going to see that little Apple logo on the door to your favorite restaurant in the not-too-distant future. They want that little icon to be the equivalent to the MasterCard logo, to the Visa logo, and that's why we've moved away from calling things iWatches and iPay, and it's Apple, because anybody can have an I in front of their product.
That's true, and I guess they would have a tough time fighting that. You were looking for some of the stats, Michael, I think. Installed base,
Yep.
They were saying 46% is iOS 8, 48% is the new
48% iOS 8.
14.
Why Apple likes to boast about this specifically is because it's a pretty picture to put up against its arch rival Android. There are so many variations of the Android operating system right now that it's very difficult for developers to write apps for an Android-based device, knowing that you don't know what version of that operating system people are using. But Apple and Craig
Federighi,
Ferengi,
software man.
the software
if he's
guy.
running a software company, then he's a man to watch. I'm telling you.
It's not going to be a software company. You fast forward 10 years, it's going to be a financial services company. But to your point, 48% of people who have an iPhone today are already using the new iOS 8, whereas the most recent update to the operating system on Android, I'm looking here, it looks to be about 54%. You still have 1 in 4 Android users, according to Apple anyway, using a 3-year-old version of the operating system.
So that's something that they would obviously like to see rolled over, but it also potentially means that the cycle for the new phones could be longer, which is good because then it doesn't force them to innovate at a faster pace than they have before. So one thing to note that is going well for Apple in addition to this is their live stream hasn't interrupted as of yet. Remember, that was a huge problem. We thought that was our connection issue.
Right.
But it turns out the whole world was having issues. So, no need to wait and buffer.
Yeah.
You're getting this, so they fixed that. They got some extra servers, bought some extra bandwidth. Maybe they're renting it from Amazon.
Oh, wow, ouch, them's fighting words. Because we know that Apple's been working very hard at their own server farm technology, and they've been building out plants all across the United States. They're talking about the keyboard right now, and I know we're jumping around a little bit as they do as well. But you've got an iPhone.
Yeah,
Are you
correct.
comfortable with the keyboard that came with the operating system?
Yes, I am, and I found when I initially switched from BlackBerry to the Apple iPhone, I found it incredibly difficult, but it's amazing how quickly you just put your faith in autocorrect and think that it is just going to be there for you. And when it's not, it's usually funny, and that's okay too. But that is the hesitancy of a lot of people, and I'm speaking mainly of my own parents who don't want to give up the keyboard because they don't want to deal with those kind of fumbles. And that's one of the reasons I think that the watch won't be as successful, because it's just too small. You know, Apple made big inroads with executives. Executives are older and their eyesight is worse. And so they need that big font that you can get on bigger phones.
Well, that's, I suppose, one of the biggest reasons why the iPhone 6 came in a larger screen at 4.7 inches, and then the 6 Plus came at 5.5 inches. One little thing, too, you can go into the operating system and increase the font size itself.
Yes.
So even if you have an older model iPhone, you can do that. But to your point, the keyboard itself, you can now with the new operating system install new and additional keyboards. It was a little rough around the edges when they launched it at first, but people are loving it.
Speaking of keyboards, I didn't even know they had this. Klingon. You can download a Klingon keyboard. That's currently being highlighted right now. I should know that because my mother is a Trekkie, and so I had to grow up with that. I can do this. Can you do that? Live long and prosper?
Of course I can do that. You're calling me a nerd without the ability to live long and prosper?
I'm not a nerd, and I could do this, so I should get extra points for that.
Keyboards. Okay, there's a whole bunch of them here. Let's see if we can
More
find
than one Klingon keyboard.
see if we can find a Klingon keyboard for you. A Boy Genius report has a collection. I punched into Google Klingon keyboard, so this is what we ended up at here. It doesn't surprise me. You can do Arabic, you can do Romanian, you can do all sorts of different languages: Swedish, Thai, Turkish, Ukrainian. It's all on there as well. But I don't see one here that says oh, there's Klingon. Apparently, yes, you can do a Klingon one as well.
Any words? Do you know any Klingon?
Keyboard no.
Can you say only Apple can in Klingon? Good try.
I'm a Star Wars nerd, not a Star Trek.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to pick this up.
We need to check the Apple event tweets here and see how people are, what people are saying about this as well, because this really doesn't seem like anything exciting and special outside of the fact that we know that Apple Pay is coming October 20th. So we're following.
So yeah, we're not seeing much stock reaction. I'm taking a look at it right now. So that announcement didn't do much to surprise investors, it seems like, but that is a quicker rollout than I think we were looking at. The big question is how much does Apple get from this? It's been long rumored that it's 15 cents for every dollar spent.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get confirmation once this is rolled out and Apple breaks out how much Apple Pay is bringing in, but this could be a potentially huge revenue driver if you think about the average person making purchases of what, $100 a day? Or do we get it?
They're not liking your friend Craig on the Intertron right now.
Serious? That's not true.
He's tweeting that he asks if he's the only one who finds Craig hard to take. It's mostly the hair, he says.
He's probably jealous. He's got a nice full head of hair.
This guy's right in there with the Trivago guy. Is that who I'm talking about?
Okay, come on. Craig is obviously different from the Trivago guy. Let's not sully his name. Craig's not the Trivago guy. He's actually a German soap opera actor as well.
The guy who plays the Trivago guy?
He's very versatile.
Oh, well, I didn't know. The things you learn when you sit down for an hour.
His acting depth knows no bounds.
Looks like the Apple doesn't have a lot to offer at this event. Same old up until now.
You know what they have to do then? Bring out U2.
You know, we talked on the Geeks and Beats podcast with The Edge from U2.
Okay.
And he had a great line about the plan to basically spam the iTunes universe with their new album, Songs of Innocence. And his line was great. And we know he was in part joking, but what he basically said was that this will make us more famous. And it has. As we talked on the show, 500 million people got the free download. That doesn't mean 500 million people downloaded it. They know that 81 million people experienced the album. Now, that experience could be listening to the songs.
Yeah.
It could be playing it to the trash. But 81 million people downloaded it to their device and did something with it.
Yes.
Of all of the songs Apple has ever sold, all of the U2 songs they've ever sold since the iTunes Store opened, 14 million. So from 81 million. That is a remarkable jump in the number of people who got exposed to U2. And now what we're learning from the
And
edge is
now
that.
they can. They're trying to scrub it from their brains. I'm kidding.
Have you listened to the album?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be interested. Beyonce did something like this. Sign me up.
Beyonce.
I'm there.
Really?
You can't roll your eyes on Beyonce. Not here. This is a sacred place.
Okay. All right, miss.
So one of the things there were a lot of kinks with the iOS 8 upgrade. Did you experience that?
Yeah, I'm the nerd in your life who will upgrade to everything first and then tell you, don't wait until I give you the all clear. And I was just about to give the all clear on iOS 8 when they came out with an update, iOS 8.01. And that was full of bugs.
Yep.
That gave people a lot of trouble.
We had problems with Twitter.
Problems with Twitter. I'm still having problems with Twitter on my iOS device. But the 8.02 is much better. But again, I'm still having trouble if I'm on Wi-Fi with Twitter. I can't seem to do anything.
So one of the things that happened with the iOS 8 is, you probably noticed this if you're a user, the camera feature and how they cataloged your photographs was much different. It wasn't the camera roll that we were used to. They started categorizing it by date and place, which theoretically makes it a little bit easier to find things. But apparently they've been hearing a lot of gripes about that. So they're bringing back the camera roll and launching this beta version of the iCloud photo library. So it sounds like they're turning it back into an option rather than forcing everybody to be organized.
That's probably a good idea. You don't want to be making these kinds of changes at the last minute when it comes down to it, do you?
No.
I'm just checking to see what else we've got coming out here, because by and large, I think the one thing that we're still really waiting for is that refresh to the iPad Mini. Have you seen that yet?
I guess that's the big thing, because usually Apple saves the big thing for the back half of their what's usually about a 90-minute presentation.
It's not going 90 minutes.
Maybe an hour? How much time do we have to spend together?
How much time would you like to spend with me?
I'm counting down the minutes. Just kidding. So they really got that out of the bag with very little fanfare. I think that's pretty impressive that they're rolling out Apple Pay as soon as Monday, and that's been Tim Cook's strength. It might not be on the innovation side, but it's always been operations. Normally, he can get the devices into the hands of people right away, faster than Steve Jobs ever could. So operations has been sort of the area that he has innovated the most at Apple.
That has been really his background. Before Tim Cook was the chief executive officer, he was the chief operating officer. He was the guy on a day-to-day basis making sure this company stayed afloat and did what it needed to do to get from point A to point B. The introduction of your buddy Craig Ferengi.
Federighi.
As
He might be the new CEO, so.
Well, he could be at some point.
I
But
learned that name.
he was the replacement for Scott Forstall, who was widely seen as one of the more difficult guys to work with within the Apple empire. He was Steve Jobs without the charisma.
Right.
And so when they unloaded him, suddenly more things started to happen within the company. They accelerated the development of technology. We got more products coming out sooner. And so it's a lot of credit for that.
I think there's a lot of disappointment, as far as what I can tell, on the Twitter sphere, that the fact that Apple is sort of front-loading all of these things that, quite frankly, we've heard before, except for the date of when Apple Pay is coming out, is a clear indication that the new products are not earth-shatteringly different.
Did you need them to be earth-shattering different? Not at this point in the game. We already got the Apple Watch. Yeah. The Apple Pay, again, October 20th coming out. And so we kind of already know what Apple's big path is for 2015, 2016. We don't really see any, we talked about the prospect of Apple TV, but that is highly unlikely.
I'm finding one of the special things about talking about consumer-driven companies is it's very easy to understand, and there are these rare moments that you have when you just feel like this company gets me. I have these needs, and it has figured it out. And Apple used to be very good at that. But I'm finding in very small ways, there are things I'm getting more and more frustrated about the way the camera operates, about how iTunes operates, that isn't really evolving with my needs. And so I think Apple is sort of becoming, not an IBM, but just a giant tech behemoth that is a staple, that's advancing, and is no longer on the cutting edge of innovation. I feel that as a user.
Now, I know that you've got the iPhone.
Yes.
But do you have a Mac to go with it, or are you a Windows person?
Windows.
Okay, now I'm a Mac guy through and through now. We just recently upgraded to a new iMac.
So full disclosure here.
So full disclosure here. But one of the features that didn't work up until the release of the new version of the Mac operating system is the ability to basically beam any content from your smartphone directly to your Mac and back and forth. So that's what your boyfriend's talking about right now.
Yes.
On the event. He is actively talking about this. And not only is this for beaming content like a photo or working on an email on your desktop and it immediately being available on your iPhone or your your iPad once you've decided to move away from your desktop, but also make phone calls. So if you've got your smartphone sitting there, your iPhone sitting there next to you, and a call comes through, it can route directly to your Mac.
The interesting feature is that you don't need Wi-Fi. They're unveiling it with AirDrop and AirPlay, so that's an interesting workaround that I haven't actually seen the others do, because we know BlackBerry's unveiling the BlackBerry Blend. Oh, demo time. Greg's going to do his thing. And I think they got in a Microsoft disk, so that's done and over with.
Yeah. The AirDrop feature is part of that whole idea that they want you to be in their walled garden. The ecosystem will be robust enough that you've got a desktop, you've got a tablet, you've got a smartphone, they all work together. This really neat feature for me anyway is you're working away on a word processing document. I was going to say a Word document, but I'm sure Apple will reach through and slap me.
DOS.
Right. So you're working on a Word document and you get called away, and next thing you know, you're sitting on transit.
Right.
You can actually pick up exactly where you left off because the two of them are in simpatico with each other.
That's not a game changer, Michael. That's where things are going in almost every
device. Has anyone else
device.
done that yet, Miss?
Yeah, they're working on that. That's what.
They're working on that. Who's working on that?
But my point is, once that technology exists, I don't think it will be something unique to Apple and will be the sticking thing. It'll be the baseline, what everybody expects. I know I come off so negative here. You do this to me.
You know what this is? This is you're spending
I have
all
to be the
that
bad
time.
cop.
Yes, you're spending all that time up at BlackBerry headquarters in Waterloo, starting to drink their Kool-Aid, my friend.
I'm not, because I'm still skeptical about their devices. I know you've played with the Passport.
Yes.
And you found it weird.
I found it weird, but you know what? That's the kind of device, and I think the iPhone 6 sort of falls into that category as well, the iPhone 6 Plus anyway, it's the product that you pull out of your pocket, put on the table, and everyone stops what they're saying and doing to focus on you. If you're that kind of person who needs to be the center of attention, a Passport or an iPhone 6 Plus, perfect devices for you.
Wow. I guess I know what I'll be getting for Christmas. This is quite funny, actually. So they are going into a secrecy joke. Of course, we know there was that data breach. Craig shows an email from Tim Cook that's titled "Doubling Down on Secrecy." Mm-hmm. So they're kind of poking fun at themselves, which I think shows that they're not necessarily scared by it. And when we saw from Apple a month ago, it was a very confident company.
The company is also showing off now that they've got that new headquarters they're working on. Just let me see if I can rewind this just a little bit. The Apple spaceship, have you seen this?
No.
We'll show it to you now. It's this spherical headquarters that they've been building,
yes.
And they've been working on it for quite some time. And it's buried within the forest outside Cupertino, California. And the idea is that no matter what office you're in, you can look out the window, and you don't see the highway whizzing past you. You see trees. You see flowers. You see birds.
Because I've heard Apple can actually be quite a difficult place to work. Morale there hasn't been great. So this could be something that boosts that. They're showing, is that Stephen Colbert?
That is Stephen Colbert.
Oh, I hope they
back to your chief of secrecy reference there.
Yeah.
They're taking shots.
They're taking shots. I like that. I think that's fair game. People like us take shots at them when they screw up, so they're entitled to spin it their way.
We're waiting as well for evidence that the company is going to be upgrading the iMacs to the Retina displays. So not only will you get the ultra-high resolution quality video on your iPhone, they want to bring that to a bigger screen as well.
They're calling Stephen Colbert right now. He is their chief of secrecy. So they've got a lot of heavyweights in their back pocket. Dr. Dre.
Yeah.
you too, whether you think that's a good thing or not. And now Stephen Colbert. It's interesting when you're talking about those brand new headquarters. You know that the old tale about tech companies is that's when they've really peaked and they have nowhere to go but down when they start building fancy new headquarters.
Oh, this is a jump the shark kind of moment.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay. I don't know.
I'm just passing it along.
They've got, what, $133 billion in the bank.
Yeah.
They need to do something with it.
They're not going bankrupt.
They're not going bankrupt anytime. Why not build yourself a spaceship-style headquarters where there are no corners? Everybody walks in a circle all day. It's massive. It's something like in the neighborhood of size of like.
I don't think I've heard anybody praise circular reasoning before, so I don't know if that's the kind of thinking that they want to foster. But I would like to look outside and see pretty trees. So if Bell were to do something like that, go for it.
Hey, easy now, easy now. As they talk to Stephen Colbert right now, this is highlighting, again, one of the features that is trying to unify all of our gadgets, all of our toys, so that you stop thinking about the technology as technology, that it's more utility than anything else. It's been a long time since we've thought about the electricity that runs through the walls. You know, one of the opening scenes in Downton Abbey, as it takes place in 1912, is the Dowager complaining about the electricity and scared to death that it's going to make her sick. These were the things that they thought about when they first started running electricity through our walls 102 years ago or so. And so now what we're seeing here is not just Apple, Microsoft particularly, but not just Apple, trying to ensure that there is that seamless experience amongst all of our devices.
I think that's great. I think that will be very useful.
You're very impressed.
I'm very, very good for you, slow clap. But no, I think that's great because people are using more than one device. People are sitting in front of their TVs with their laptops on their laps and their phone right beside them. So if you can get all of them to talk to each other at once, that of course is the future, and it keeps each of them necessary so that one device doesn't make the other obsolete.
Ferengi's talking about tripling down on secrecy right now, which brings us back to that point about how Apple's Touch ID system doesn't have the ability to record you. When you put your finger down on the fingerprint reader, have you ever used the fingerprint reader on this thing? It's really quite surprising, very, very 21st century gee whiz Jetsons type stuff. But that fingerprint is encrypted and encoded on the chip on the iPhone that you're holding in your hand. It doesn't have to go to Apple. It doesn't store it anywhere but on the phone itself. So that's one level of the security that they're talking about.
But we've seen that that's not impenetrable. You can still hack past that system.
Absolutely. You know, you can cut somebody's finger off. You can get a copy of their fingerprint.
Recently, we didn't see an increased incidence of that kind of activity, which is probably for the better. I don't think Apple could have survived that kind of PR.
Yeah, that creates a whole different meaning of the term thumb drive.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, now what are they doing over here?
Are they still on the phone with Colbert?
No, they're being wacky, and I don't quite know what they're doing. They're talking.
He got so many laughs.
Yeah, they're talking about the multiple security protocols that Apple goes through. The two-step authentication process is something they're introducing for the iCloud after the Jennifer Lawrence nude hack and all of that. What Apple went to great lengths to explain, and I don't know that anybody really got it, I don't know that it stuck, was that it really wasn't that Apple's servers were hacked. It was that Jennifer Lawrence's password was easy enough to guess that somebody managed to just keep guessing until they got it right, and then they did so for a large collection of celebrities. But part of the power of two-step verification is that even if you guess the password, there is a second stage you have to go through before you can actually get in. And they're introducing that with the new operating system.
And wasn't there supposed to be a system, or hasn't there been in other systems, where if you try a password a couple of times and it's wrong, you get locked out completely?
That's right.
Was that something Apple?
That's part of that. So you've got the phone number tied to your smartphone that requires you to be able to use that.
Yosemite is available to be downloaded today, so the software is.
Which I'm really excited about. Largely, again, because you have the ability with AirDrop to transfer a photo or what have you between friends on your iPhone.
Yeah.
But up until this point, it hasn't worked between your iPhone and your desktop, and that's kind of really where you want it to be.
And now your watch. Federighi is controlling the presentation with his watch.
Really?
Yep. So I guess there we go. That serves a potential business function if you're in a meeting, or for you, Michael, because I know you do a lot of presentations. Can you imagine dialing it down on your watch?
I've got these dainty wrists. There's no way that
But then
this wrist is
everybody can see it, can appreciate the daintiness.
actually, to that point, and this was actually, I suppose you could say, marketing genius on Apple's part.
Yeah.
There are two sizes of the new iWatch, or sorry, the Apple Watch. You know that, right?
No, I don't.
Well, instead of calling them men's and women's watches, there's one, and I think it's 38 millimeters in size, and the other is 45 millimeters in size. So guys with little dainty wrists like mine can say, oh, well, I'll get the smaller 38 millimeter version of this Apple Watch.
Without
as
feeling
opposed to-
emasculated.
Exactly, without feeling like you're just a girly mom.
But you're too strong for any of that, so you wouldn't be susceptible.
Thank you, I
Yeah,
think.
that was a compliment.
It was? Okay.
Wrapped in a little backhandedness.
Well,
How we do.
Tim Cook's back on the stage.
iPad coming up next.
So this looks like the update. The new iPad is the iPad Air, and that iPad Air sort of ties into their MacBook Air line.
Yeah.
So the question had become, are they going to return to the nomenclature of things being version 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? It looks like that's what they're going to do here. If that accidental release of screenshots yesterday is any indication, this is going to be labeled the Apple iPad Air 2, and then there'll be the Mini 3. Again, both
Sorry,
with the touch screen.
did you get that long pause for my excitement?
You're just so thrilled.
I mean, no, it is an important innovation. They do sell a lot of these. It'll be interesting to see whether they can coexist with the bigger phones. And so they poked fun of themselves on secrecy. I wonder if they'll poke fun of themselves on Bendgate and Hairgate.
The Hairgate
Craig
one was
should be
new
the
on
one to
me.
do that.
What's Hairgate?
Hairgate is because the phone was so large that people who had bushy beards or long hair, their hair was getting caught in it. You didn't hear about Hairgate?
No, tell me more.
Tech nerd, are you? That's kind of the extent of it.
There's really nothing more to that.
It was yanking your hair out. But you saw Samsung waste no time playing on this. In fact, they made a 200-pound robotic buttocks. This is now the second time.
Samsung did?
Yep. It was a 200-pound robotic buttocks that they had sit on their phone multiple times and prove that it was impervious to bending.
Let's see if I can find that.
You gotta find. I tweeted it out a while ago. We did it on BNN, but I thought that was awesome.
Oh, you know, the internet is having a lot of fun with this right now. I'm just looking at a whole collection of different images.
Yeah, try looking up the robotic buttocks.
Okay.
We'll see if we can play that.
Can I type robotic buttocks into Google image search here?
You can. Francis pointed out that I was probably the only person under 50 who still said the term buttocks. But I wanted to be clear that I wasn't talking about the word butt.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what? I punched robotic buttocks Samsung in, and the first video that shows up is ours.
Oh, perfect. Look at us.
Oh.
Really giving them all the free advertising that they could ever handle.
Exactly. So iOS 8.1 comes on Monday, and it brings the Apple Pay and the continuity support along with it. It'll also bring back the camera roll, which, as you discussed, they changed it to images recently taken, and that just seemed to confuse everybody. If you update to the new firmware, you get access to the public beta of the iCloud photo library, which gives you the ability to access full-resolution photos and videos without any downscaling. But again, it's that continuity that I've been talking about, the ability to ensure that whatever you're working on your Mac works. It just follows you wherever you go in the iOS world.
They're talking about their extraordinary numbers right now, about the fact that they've sold 225 million iPads around the world. So again, you know, not as sexy as an iPhone unveil, but still a big chunk of their business. And David Pogue actually mentions that in the last 12 months, Apple has sold more iPads than the total number of computers sold by Lenovo, HP, Dell, or Acer.
Well, wasn't it the Christmas of 2013 where we saw the first decline in personal computer sales year over year in the history of the personal computer because people were buying tablets?
And that was the thinking that marked the end of the PC. But we've actually seen those numbers come back a little bit, so it hasn't been as fast and furiously as people thought. and maybe come back is the wrong word. They've now stabilized at a level, so it's not a growing market, but there are still people that are out there buying it that need to refresh the technology that, for example, their employees use.
The company says that they've sold more iPads in the first 4 years than they have sold of any other product in our history, as you had pointed out, and the customers and developers have been using the iPad in ways that they had never imagined. We're still, again, waiting for more than just a few details on
Never
what this
imagined,
is.
so maybe that's the new thing. Maybe it's waterproof.
Nope. Not going to be
Oh,
waterproof.
you just shut that down really quickly.
Okay, so
Let me dream a little.
BNN.CA has that video that you were talking about, and there's you talking about the video itself, and that Samsung put out making fun of the new. There were only like 9 people who reported that their iPhones bent when
So
they
do you
sat
think
down.
we made too much fuss out of it?
Well, no, we're the media. It's our job to make too much fuss out of things.
Well, let's make a fuss out of this, that the iPad Air 2 is thinner.
The iPad Air was quite thin. This one being thinner, I suppose, shouldn't be much of a surprise.
But it's like paper. It's like technological paper.
Well, we were down at the Consumer Electronics Show. We had come across a company that had done exactly that. They had taken basically sheets of paper and embedded sensors around the edges so that you could take 2 sheets of paper, put them side by side to create one single larger screen, and you could flick between them. Things like you could take an email on one of those pieces of paper, flick it to the other piece of paper, and then walk away and read that email on the other piece of paper.
That's not something you want to give to your 5-year-old.
No, no.
They're going to cram that thing into in no time.
And it was all connected to wires that were buried underneath the desk to a computer that was running it all. So we are many years away from actual paper-thin based
I
technology.
guess that's cool. We get closer to your Star Trek ideal of what the future should be like.
Exactly. So all we're basically
It's
boasting. Go on.
skinny as a pencil. 6.1 millimeters.
Okay, is that an NHB pencil?
I don't know if it's a number 2. Let's assume it's a basic number 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's check off the list of things here that we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for Apple Pay.
Got it?
October 20th is when that comes
Yeah,
as part of the
Monday.
rollout on Monday. The operating system gets updated on Monday as well.
Mm-hmm.
The operating system for Macs gets updated today, if I
Yes.
recall reading.
Yep,
So that's
Yosemite.
Yosemite or Yosemite, depending on where you live. It gets
Depending on where
updated.
your emphasis is going to go.
You got to put it on the right syllable. And so with that, we now have the new iPad Air 2.
Yes.
We're waiting for the iPad Mini 3, and possibly a new iMac.
Possibly, but it seems like that's all we're going to get. That's all she wrote. Maybe the fact that it's so thin is incredible. I don't know if you have a picture of it now, but it really is only as thin as a pencil, and they just put it up to that image to show it. So pretty interesting. It's at least a sleek device.
Yeah, they're showing off the touchscreen technology that's inherent in it. That's not your boyfriend up on the screen right now, though.
No, that's some other guy.
No, that's the head of hardware there.
Yeah.
So what they're focusing on is the reduced internal reflection, which is interesting because for quite some time, screens didn't have a lot of reflection. And then they went, wait a minute, if we make them reflectable, people will think they're higher quality screens. And then, of course, you couldn't read them outside
Right.
because they were reflecting all of the light.
And that's how the Kindle kind of weaseled its way into that market.
Paper technology. But they're now boasting that this new one has anti-reflective coating, which is 56% less reflective, which brings us back to fighting Kindle in a market. Like I've got a friend who spends his summers in the south of France. He's got a very hard life.
Yeah.
And he used to bring a briefcase filled with paperback books because he doesn't speak French,
Yes.
yet all of his family does. So while they all think that he's an idiot because he can't speak French very well, he just sits on a beach
Very well read.
reading. He's very well read. Now he brings a Kindle because he can't bring his iPad. He can't read it on the beach.
I'm a purist. I still like books. It boggles my boyfriend's mind that I am so archaic to have paperback with me, but I still like it. That's something I think I'm going to hold on to. Though this iPad Air 2, the one that Tim Cook was holding, was the gold.
40% faster in the CPUs. The brains of it, with the second generation 64-bit architecture and 3 billion transistors, they say is 40% faster for the main brain. The graphics chip is 2.5 times faster. And what makes that relevant is that in addition to the higher quality chip that makes it possible to put graphics out at a faster pace. They also updated behind the scenes the operating system with a new capability for video game players, because they know that they've already started to eat the lunch of the Nintendo DS and other mobile gaming devices. They have a lot invested in ensuring that people continue to play games on iOS devices.
Games, but also we're seeing a bigger and bigger push into certain industries like healthcare, like education. So the sleeker they make these things, the faster that they make them, the quicker the adoption in some of those industries. So they get the broad consumer, but they also get industry, and presumably they'll be able to extract a higher dollar from them. The good thing is it might be thinner, but it's not smaller, so you can't fit it into your skinny jeans. So we might avoid this whole Bengate thing after all.
The iPad Air 2 has a 10-hour battery life, and the A8 chip is the same as the one that's in the iPhone 6 with an M8 Motion processor. That chip was designed to take a lot of the heavy lifting off the actual CPU chip, because we knew that there were a lot of these apps that were being developed that took advantage of the accelerometer, and other health-oriented apps were coming together, but they were chewing up a ton of battery life. If you have a dedicated chip for this kind of technology, then you don't have to worry about chewing up as much battery life. They're now talking about the camera and how the camera will be used in a variety of apps, and that they're increasing the quality of the camera, particularly the front-facing camera, because you've got that not just selfie thing, which I see you smirking about, but also FaceTime.
But no NFC chip.
I don't think that we've seen an NFC chip in this new iPad.
I think that would be a stretch. Can you imagine taking it to the grocery store?
Taking it to the grocery store. Starbucks, apparently, we're now learning, is getting very big in this as well.
So we are 48 minutes in to the launch.
Yep.
It seems like we're going to end with the iPad. I wonder if we're going to see that ominous sign and one more thing.
And one more thing. Okay, well, again, it looks like they're still talking about the iPad Air 2.
Okay.
We still have the iPad Mini to talk about, and then again, back to the iMac. The idea of having a screen that has this ultra-high resolution is something that probably will appeal more to graphic designers than it would to Joe Average. I wonder about the company's margin compression that comes with putting such a high-resolution, expensive screen on such large real estate. My Mac is 27 inches, which is as big as you can get at this point, and I paid a pretty penny for it. I don't know that I would want to spend that much more for a Retina display when most people don't have them anyway.
Do we know the pricing yet on some of these models? Is it expected to be higher?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's exactly the same. That's Apple's history, where they will release a product and the current generation is priced at the same as the past generation. They lower the past generation's pricing. A friend of mine emailed me the other day, and this is highly advised. If you were ever thinking about making a geek purchase of any way, shape, or form in your life, talk to a geek before you do. A number of friends of mine who have run out and bought an iPhone a month before the new one comes out.
Yeah.
You have the option. You can either get that new model, or you can get the model you just paid for less. And that is most likely the scenario that will play out here.
I don't know. I want something else here to happen.
Yeah, there's really not that much more. We were not expecting one more thing moment.
Yeah.
Largely because we got that with the Apple Watch. We got that with the Apple Pay. And these are products that still haven't even hit the store shelves yet. The Apple Watch is not due until sometime in 2015.
Yeah, March is what we're expecting, so they're missing the holiday season with that. But Apple Pay rolling out right on Monday, and so that could force another upgrade cycle that we've been talking about. That would be ahead of the holidays, which is very important for every retailer, including Apple.
If you're just joining us, the Apple Pay feature, which is coming October 20th, the company has announced that in addition to, I think it was 200 banks that they had initially partnered with on the announcement in September, that 500 additional banking partnerships have been announced. They have 200,000 merchants already signed up for this, and that the Apple Pay will be built into the Passbook. It will work online and as an in-app as well.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it actually just starts in the United States.
That's correct. We don't have a launch for Canada as of yet, but it's one of these things where you've got so many American large multinationals in this country that being able to roll out Apple Pay in Canada would be virtually a flip of a switch.
You know, you're right, and it's actually amazing how behind the U.S. is. compared to Canada, but also compared to the world in terms of payment technology. In Canada, we're so used to chips now. Chips, you punch in your code for your credit card, for your debit card. In the U.S., the vast majority of retailers actually don't support that technology, and so you're still signing. Can you imagine? So archaic.
What we learned through the chip technology, that in and to itself was not completely secure, and boingboing.net did a big expose on it when we rolled out chip technology on our Visa cards and our debit cards, that it was so easily hackable, that it was farcical that the industry was presenting this to us as a viable means of ensuring that we don't get...
So you're saying we were the guinea pigs?
We were the guinea pigs. And it simply didn't work out. This has never been a case of winner takes all. There's always been a leapfrog scenario that plays out where you've got the hackers who come out with a hack for whatever the latest in technology is. That gets updated. They start fighting back and forth, and they just one-up each other. It's a Cold War scenario, really.
And the exciting thing about Apple Pay, you know, when you look at what Apple made watches obsolete, they could be potentially making wallets obsolete. You think about those clunky things that particularly men drag around and have to sit on their back pocket. You know, if you can get rid of that in the next year, that is hugely
in the next year?
Why not? They're rolling it out on Monday.
No.
Of course.
The biggest reason why we're not going to see Apple Pay or any variation therein replace your wallet anytime soon, the government.
Why?
You want to get into your car without your driver's license? Do you want to risk walking around without your health card?
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, there are critical partners that have yet to come forward with this technology to say, yes, we are on board with this. And once your driver's license can be pulled up by just flashing your smartphone screen, or you walk into your doctor's office and you hit the Touch ID button to reveal that you are who you say you are, you're still going to have to carry around a purse. At least I know I am.
Well, yes, of course, it completes the outfit, so I wouldn't want to see you without your purse. But, you know, there's no reason that your driver's license, that your health card can't just be a barcode.
Oh, I agree completely. There's no reason why it can't. It's just it isn't.
Yes.
And until it comes along.
Thinner wallets in a year's time.
Right. Some of us will have thinner wallets. So you've replaced the Starbucks card.
Yeah.
You've replaced your debit card. You've replaced your Visa card. What else does Apple Pay replace for you?
That's it. Those are the three things. But that's what's in my wallet.
Loyalty
Cash?
cards, right? Well, you don't really. Do you need cash?
No.
Is this not a cashless society?
No. Talk to the cab drivers in Toronto. Apparently, it's not.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Talk to them about a Visa society as well.
They've got to take it out and charge it. And like, really?
Yeah.
Why isn't it charged?
Exactly. So we still have a ways to go before something like Apple Pay comes on board in any meaningful way for the world. But it'll be interesting to see. By the time it hits the United States or October 20th for the United States, by the time it comes to Canada, that's actually not that far away.
Touch ID, as we've been talking about, available on the iPad. So that is potentially useful for Apple Pay. So if you do want to pay with your iPad, you can.
Yeah. They're boasting about a collection of new apps. Pixelmator on the iPad, a mobile version of the photo editing app, is up there right now. I've got Pixelmator for the Mac. It's basically Photoshop for those who want to spend the $700 on Photoshop.
I could use that.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but it's a little complicated. And if you're accustomed to Photoshop, it's really difficult to figure out.
I know there's a lot of people on Instagram that are very well versed in airbrushing their photos in addition to filtering. So I think that this will be widely used. If anything, these iPhones or smartphones have taught us there's no limit to our narcissism.
Well,
we will go the distance.
We will.
To take a great selfie.
I'm on the Twitter feed right now, and if you'd like to join in on the conversation, by all means, send us a tweet. BNN is the Twitter handle that you want to use. We're just looking here at some of the comments about the Apple event so far. It's a lot of really neat photos. They really got to do something about this all-black look, though, don't you think?
In the background?
Yeah.
That's sort of their thing.
True. True.
You know, they've got the guys in the collared shirt. They need to get women up there, in fact, and that's been something they've been struggling to do. But, you know, we've seen it in the difference between the lineup for the men's bathroom and the women's bathroom. Apple and probably offices across Silicon Valley are the only places that the women's line bathroom is much shorter than the men's line bathroom.
Well,
I
this,
would go there for that basis alone.
well, it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in the boardroom, not just the boardroom level, but at the executive level, generally speaking, at Apple. Tim Cook was a huge breath of fresh air against Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had this massive hoard of cash, refused to engage in any philanthropic activities within the Apple community itself. Such things, simple things as supporting gay rights and all of that. They were very mum on that until Steve Cook came along. So thank you, Tim Cook came along. So this may be that next stage of the company's social development, that they do in fact have more women actively involved, not just behind the scenes, but actually on the stage.
Yeah, and so I guess that would be the upside there. I don't know that Tim Cook, that I would agree with that notion that he was a breath of fresh air for the company. I think they were
You don't think Tim Cook was a breath of fresh air for the company?
No.
They instigated share buybacks under his
They did
reign?
not. Carl Icahn said, listen, buddy, you got to do this otherwise. And do you think he would have been as successful under Steve Jobs, who would have stood his
No.
ground on
Exactly.
that?
That's what I'm getting at. Is that Tim Cook knows a good thing when he sees it.
But Carl Icahn wouldn't have even knocked on Apple's door if Steve Jobs was still there, because presumably, based on his track record, there would still be innovation, and there would be no reason for Apple to be an undervalued company and thus the target of an activist.
So the new iPad Air 2.
Not even going to admit that I'm right?
No, we're just going to move on.
You can move past?
I found something shiny to talk about.
Okay, go ahead.
The new iPad 2 Air comes in gold.
Yes.
Again, back to the Kim Kardashian.
More gold.
We got this tweet here from Pine and Bars Marketing. I love gold.
Yes, that's exactly what I was referencing. Austin Powers, gold member.
Yeah. But it's going to be known as the Kim Kardashian iPad.
You're going to coin it? You started it. Apparently, so the Apple Pay will only be used for online purchases, not point-of-sale purchases. So you can use,
Apple, oh, you mean on the iPad?
On the iPad, sorry, yeah.
It doesn't have the NFC chip.
Yes, exactly. So it is equipped. You can easily, so instead of going on a website and entering your credit card information and doing all of that, it will already be linked up to your Apple Pay account. So it's similar to when you buy something on iTunes, except this makes everything iTunes, whether you're on a retailer's website, whether you're on futureshop.ca, you'll be able to pay from this one account.
Kanye the Bard tweets, my reflection in the iPad mini retina screen is more beauticious than a summer's day for Kim Kardashian's butt.
Are a summer's day and Kim Kardashian's butt the equivalent?
You know what, we'll let Yeezus figure that all out.
Yeah, that's true.
Kanye the Bard, crazy stuff.
He will, or himself. The real Kanye would have inserted himself in there.
That's a good point. So the iPad 2, faster and thinner, big yawn as far as most people are concerned. Let's see what the stock is doing.
It's down 0.25%.
Is it?
Which is not. Well, no, that is bad because the Nasdaq is now up 0.5%. So it's underperforming. It hasn't wowed investors. I hope we're wowing people though.
This is definitely not a wow type of event. Here is the intraday view on it. So 1 p.m. Eastern Time is when the news first hit the tape. Stock pulled into positive territory shortly after, at about 12 minutes past, dipped back into negative territory, and it's been struggling ever since.
Let's see what it's done since the event. It was about a month ago, right?
Right. So
it's lost some steam. So is the market, but it's down. It's down about 4%. Most of that came in the past week.
Right. So if I recall correctly, this was the point at which we saw the event. The stock is down from $102 down to $98 since the launch of the Apple Watch, as well as all the new Gizmodo.
Maybe the Klingon keyboard will save them.
The Klingon keyboard.
That's what they need. More Klingon. Forget NFC chips. More Klingon.
All right. So is this the new Mini that they're talking about here? The second generation 64-bit A8X chip? New eyesight and FaceTime cameras, ultra-fast wireless, the Touch ID, and an improved Retina display. Do you have a tablet yourself?
I do, but I never use it.
What do you have? Don't tell me a playbook.
No. It's an iPad.
It is
but
an
like one of the first ones.
Oh, okay.
Which I know puts me right back into your bad books.
What about the idea of the mini versus the regular iPad? I've got a friend who's looking to upgrade from an old laptop, and he's thinking about just getting the iPad or the mini because he's going to be carrying it around a lot.
You would, I think, need to get the attachable keyboard.
Belkin has a really neat one.
And I think that makes it just as useful then as having a laptop, except easier to travel with. But I'll tell you, typing with one finger on that iPad, as soon as you go from that to a computer, you're almost filled with this sense of relief because you can finally type at an efficient pace.
This is the iPad Air 2 that they're talking about right now, and they're issuing the pricing. And to our conversation earlier about what they'll be pricing it at, it looks like these are the exact same prices as the previous models, except that well, it is the same. So you're going to see the older models, the iPad Air, come down in price most likely. Oh, the iPad Mini 3. Now they're getting to this point here. We're now onto the iPad Mini 3. If you go to Apple's store, by the way, they take it down during these events.
Yes.
Apple.ca/store.
But everything presumably should be available today.
That's the expectation. Yes, that's right.
$499.
$499 for the 6-gig model, the 64-gig model, excuse me. And one of the big cocktail party nerd questions that I often get is, do I go for the 16, the 64, or the 128 gigabyte models of a tablet?
What do you recommend?
I highly recommend that unless you intend to have all of your music, all of your photos on that tablet, just go for the cheap end. Your chances are your iPhone, if you've got one, or whatever you have, that's the one that's going to have all your music on it. You don't need it everywhere else as well. You just need it on the device that's most likely to be with you at all times. So you don't need to drop an extra $200-some-odd for 128 gigabytes of memory on a tablet when 16 is probably going to be just fine.
$299 for the iPad Mini 2.
So that's
in line. Yeah.
The iPad Mini 2 is $299. The iPad Mini is $249. So there's that $50 discount for the older model. The other cocktail party question I often get is, do I get the new model or do I get the old model? Now that the old model is cheaper.
Which cocktail parties are you going to?
Clearly, ones where there are not a lot of nerds in these people's lives. But the point is that you always buy the current generation, because if you buy last year's model, the next year it's now 2 years out of date. You want to.
You seem like you've drunk the Kool-Aid.
No. This is whether it's an Apple product or anybody else's product, for that matter. The last thing you want is to be a year behind when you drop new money. This is a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
It's not going to get more expensive. It's going to get less. So why would you be investing in old technology with new money when you know that next year there's going to be a new one, the year after there's going to be a new one, and the next thing you know, you've got a 4-year-old device that's only 2 years out of the wrapper.
So the ranges for the iPads are from $249 to $499, going up with the sizes. Start pre-ordering tomorrow, ships next week.
I don't think we're going to get a one more thing kind of moment here today. And it looks like at an hour and 4 minutes into this that they're wrapping this up.
Oh, big takeaways? Are they going to bring a musical guest, or do you think they're too spurned from that?
No. Well, because the whole pushback over YouTube. The YouTube pushback, though, was over the free album. You know, heaven forbid you get a free album and then have to actually go through the process of deleting it.
Yes. No, you know what? That is problematic, because when you're shuffling on your iTunes, the last thing you want is for a U2 song to pop into the mix.
I was listening to the album, and I was getting towards the end, and I was thinking, I'm not hearing anything that particularly jumps out at me. I'm not hearing that classic U2 sound. I'm not hearing that experimental U2 sound that came with their Zoo TV tour and their Zooropa album.
Yeah.
And then just as I was getting to the end, a track came on. I'm like, all right, this is the classic U2 I've been looking for. This is the single. And then I realized about a minute into the song that it was from the Unforgettable Fire 20 years ago.
So many of these smartphone companies are really teaming up in a big way with music. You know, we saw it happen with Jay-Z and how he partnered, I think it was with Samsung, to sell his music. And they actually bought his music outright and then resold it. Sony, with the Xperia device, you got Michael Jackson's latest album, from Beyond, not Beyond, but unreleased and remastered. So this is a big trend, and it's in part because of what Apple started with iTunes. So it started with music and industry kind of hating Apple for what they had done, because musicians are taking a lot less home than they were before iTunes was this ubiquitous, and now you're seeing them partner up with the in major ways. So if you can't beat them, join them. Give away a free album to them.
Exactly. They're showing off here the new Retina displays, which, of course, on a streaming feed like this, just jumps off the page.
Right.
So all of Apple's lineup now is supporting this Retina display, which puts the industry in a very unique position because everyone else now, in that Cold War mentality, is going to find themselves with screens that have a lower quality than the industry standard bearer that some would argue Apple is.
How do you print your photos? Do you even bother with that?
Well, this is the whole reason why Kodak is in trouble. This is the whole reason why silver has fallen through the floor. There was a time when Kodak was responsible for moving the market on silver because of the printing process, the developing process of film. And then you move it into Hewlett-Packard and others with printer technology and the idea that color ink is more expensive than oil. And now, thanks to Facebook, we don't do that anymore. We're not a
What are you decorating your walls with? And not your Facebook wall. I'm talking about your real wall at home.
Well, real prints.
So you do,
real
but
actual
can you?
artwork.
But can you? No, but can you take now with the quality that we're seeing in these phones? Can you replicate the quality in print that you could from digital cameras, or we're still way beyond?
Sure. No, printer capabilities are the resolution on printers is sufficient enough to take advantage of all this new technology. Just that we're not doing it to that same degree. I've got one printout that I update once a year in my front hall. It's a family portrait of us with my little girl out front of our house. We take it every first day of school, so that when you walk into the house, there's a fresh.
Nice.
And I take the old one from the previous year and I put it in behind. So I figure that by the time she graduates, the frame is going to be about that thick from all the photos hiding behind it.
That's nice, and see, that's important.
It's the only print off I ever do of a photo now.
Well, but you'll presumably do it for another 15 years?
Well, I'm hoping at least.
At least.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Exactly.
What do you think BlackBerry's doing right now?
I know you're going to tell me.
It's up almost 1.5%, and in fact, it's advancing. It advanced right at 1 o'clock. So not necessarily pointing to the fact that this is Apple-driven, but there doesn't seem to be enough here in Apple to send people running for the hills for a BlackBerry. And this is on top of a new report that came out today. It's from CIBC, calling the demand out there for the Passport just all right. And we know that they sold about 200,000 units in the first couple of days. Now, for a company like BlackBerry struggling to get back into the market, John Chen says that's a decent number. But it pales in comparison to Apple, who's able to sell over 10 million phones in 3 days. It's an unfair comparison, but it's still a comparison because they're making smartphones. And BlackBerry advancing at exactly the time the Apple event began today.
Yeah. If you haven't been to the new BNN.CA lately, you definitely have to check it out. Our graphs on the site are just fantastic. So here we are at 12:40. At 12:45, it accelerates going into the launch of the Apple event, but really pulls positive, bless you, at about 1 o'clock Eastern time, when Tim Cook first took to the stage. Yeah. That's an interesting point. The other neat thing, too, on the new BNN.CA is the market voice, where we see what the ratings are for the stock based upon what you think it should be.
What do the viewers think?
Right now, it's still on a hold. That's the average of 3,068 ratings.
Wow.
Yeah. So the retail sentiment, the Main Street sentiment is if you've got it, don't sell it. If you don't own it, don't buy it.
Because it is one of those tough things to figure out. John Chen has been able to do what many people thought was unthinkable, and that is bring the company back from the brink of extinction, where it was a year ago when he took over. So you don't want to bet against that. However, it hasn't really captured the imagination of the world the way these Apple events do. I mean, you and I going into this Apple event knew that it was going to be probably the least exciting Apple event over the past year or so, but we still stuck around on that off chance that they are able to come out with something amazing. And still, the devices are cool to look at. So if you're a nerd, it's something that's a spectacle to be seen.
So, of course, the iPhone 6 was bigger than the iPhone 5. The iPhone 5 was bigger than the iPhone 4. The iPhone 4 was bigger than the iPhone 3. Depressed Darth has just tweeted a photo of what the new iPhone 20 is going to look like.
This big?
Massive.
Massive.
Yeah.
It'll be a big screen TV, and your big screen TV will actually now be the size of a watch, because that's what people want in their viewing, but in their phones they want massive sizes. We're all just chasing our own tails here.
Mashable points out that Apple was really quite quick in the reveal of the iPad Mini 3, not really spending a lot of time on it, which I suppose is no big surprise. That Retina 5K display for the iMac, though, 5,000 dots from vertical bottom to top. That's really quite remarkable. That's higher resolution, it looks like, than what you would get on an HD TV today.
I wonder why they didn't spend more time on Apple Pay, because it's very clear that these products are not exciting. they're cool and they're iterations, but the real potential game changer is Apple Pay. And if they spent a little bit more time talking about it, helping us understand the potential, this could be something that helps us understand where the next big push for growth is going to come from.
But you're also a business nerd, so you're focused on the financial side of things. I think the public at large is not that keen on that as a technology into itself. As a geek, I'm insanely interested in this, because as we were talking a little bit earlier, I want to ditch the wallet.
But you know what I get really excited about, and now I actually go to retailers who do this, despite the security concerns that probably do exist, is when you can just tap your credit card onto those little readers.
Yep.
I choose retailers based on that. I get so excited.
Really?
I do. There's a drugstore chain that does accept it and a drugstore chain that doesn't, and I've actually switched drugstores because of that. A drugstore I never went to before, I now go to because of that ease of payment. You shouldn't underestimate that, and studies have actually shown even convenience stores that don't offer credit cards, because they like to keep some things off the books and operate a cash-only business, studies have shown that it actually makes people not want to shop there, because people aren't carrying cash the way that they used to. So that's why I think it's important for Apple to emphasize that, because consumerism isn't going away, and they just thought of a way to play on that.
Well, that ability to hide the nature of the transaction, I'm sure must be driving the NSA crazy right
With
now.
excitement, because they love all this information that they're getting?
The opposite, because there is no cache for them to go to with Apple to say, I want to find out what Amber Kanwar bought yesterday using Apple Pay, because Apple doesn't know. The only way that they're going to find out what you bought is to go to your financial institution directly, and so by bringing in the Touch ID, by making it impossible for Apple to keep on top of what it is you're tracking or what you're buying, it's impossible for Apple to be caught in the middle of this tug of war on privacy and security rights.
Which is a good thing.
I think so.
And it's, I'm not going to cry for the NSA because they're not able to access my information, or the U.S., the Canadian equivalent, because they're not able to access my private information. Oh, I think we're on to the Macs now?
They're onto the Macs, and they're talking about the iMac now.
They're also quite thin.
They are. Of course, this
Technology
spring I bought
anorexia is running rampant.
an iMac 27-inch, I think it was back in April.
Okay.
And I didn't, for the life of me, expect that we would see a Retina display on, not that I would have waited because I needed a new machine, but Apple with this $2,499, which is basically what I paid for mine. These are the base prices, and I got it all jacked up with all as much memory and storage as you could possibly get. So it certainly wasn't $2,500 by the time I was done. But they're shipping this new one today.
Yes, I was just going to mention that, because the iPads aren't until tomorrow. So pretty impressive that you can buy and get it shipped today.
The 21.5 inches, just over $1,000, and that puts it in a price point that is comparable with the Windows-based machines that you could walk into a Best Buy and pick up today as well. And a stark contrast in strategies between Apple and Microsoft, and I would like to think that this played a big role in giving Steve Ballmer the old heave-ho because I couldn't believe they did this. Windows 8 was supposed to be the kind of thing that Apple is doing, which is bringing all of your devices together as one, and they unified the operating system as part of that. But the public at large was so used to the old way of Windows working that this new tile system, while worked great on a mobile device, was really complicated and difficult for most people to wrap their heads around on a desktop, particularly one that didn't have a touch screen associated with it. So you go out, you drop $1,100 on a computer today, it's going to come with Windows 8, and you will have very little choice but to figure it out.
This happens in a lot of marriages where the husband, goes out and tries to do all these things, but ends up neglecting the wife and impressing somebody who had no interest in him in the first place. And I mean, when a company like Microsoft tries to go out and capture the imagination of people that really are never going to come to Microsoft, they end up alienating their own base. And that's the danger of companies trying to play catch-up to others, abandoning what is good about them. We certainly saw BlackBerry do that when they got rid of their keyboard and launched the Q10. That's the danger in companies playing catch-up, is they end up forgetting why people came to them in the first place and alienating them altogether, and not capturing the imagination of new people.
As we watch Tim Cook return to the stage now and show off his line of products, from the Apple Watch coming in 2015 to the new iMac that's available as of today, I'm also looking at the press release that just crossed my screen from Apple specifically on the Apple Pay. It, again, points out that October 20th is the launch date, but there still is no Canadian launch date just yet. The company says, though, that in addition to the 262 Apple retail stores in the U.S. that will use the Apple Pay, retailers like Aeropostale, American Eagle Outfitters, Babies R Us, Bloomingdale's is in there, Subway Sandwiches, Radio Shack. Didn't even know Radio Shack still existed in the States.
Maybe this will help them.
Whole Paycheck Market or Whole Foods Market, depending on your perspective. And then a little later on this year, Anthropologie, Sephora, Staples, Urban Outfitters, and you can use your iPhone to pay for your ticket at a Walt Disney resort.
That's incredible.
I don't think I want to be on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride with my iPhone in my pocket, though.
That's true, but that's why you got one of those cases.
No, I'm
You're
not a
anti-case?
I'm anti-case. Here's my theory.
Go ahead.
It's my theory. It's all mine. Is that if you put a case on your iPhone, you will crack your screen at some point.
Well, yeah, I have a case. And
have
it's
you cracked your
and I've
screen?
cracked my screen.
You have it here. You don't even have
No,
it
I
here.
don't have it here.
Good, because that would be embarrassing. But if you do not have a screen, you know you're at risk of cracking your screen. Sorry, if you do not have a case, you know you're at risk of cracking your
You're
screen.
gentler?
So you're far more conscious of it, and you do not put it in a position of hazard or danger.
You can't all be as grown up and mature as you, though.
No, it's the opposite. It's the reason why I don't have it on, because I'm not grown up and mature enough. I have to know that if I drop it, I'm in trouble.
The picture that Tim Cook is showing right now kind of is like the evolution of man, but the evolution of Apple, and you can see all of their devices stacked up next to each other. Starts with the watch. That's a totally new category that didn't exist the year before. Now they have the iPad mini, the iPad, the Mac laptops, and the Mac desktop computers. Getting bigger.
Steve Jobs, when he came back to Apple after being, wandering through the technology desert for 40 years, one of the very first things he did was cull the number of devices that Apple was making available to the public. I think it went something ridiculous from 20 down to 4, and he just kept culling as they moved along. One of the things that they killed at the time was the Quick Take camera. This was one of the first companies to come out with a digital camera. Didn't sell very well. It was 0.3 megapixels versus today you can walk into any computer store and pick yourself up a digital camera that has 14, 16 megapixels. And even the iPhone itself is, I think, stuck at 8. But Tim Cook is starting to expand that again. Now, how many do we have? We've got the Apple Pay, we've got the tablet series, we've got the laptop series, and the desktop series, which brings us to 5.
And plus the phones. You didn't include the phones. And
Forgot all
iPods, which I have. 7.
So they've got 7. Now, the iPod is going the way of the Dodo. It's already been cannibalized by sales of the iPhone.
Yeah. But they still sell it.
They'll sell the iPod Classic, which was their high-end, the 60-gigabyte model, because you're a big shot who likes get all of your music all in one spot. That one has been canceled, but the
Still
events are
bringing
still there.
$5 billion in sales. That's still money.
$5
In
billion in sales.
2013, it brought in $5 billion in sales. It's only 3% of the pie, but it's a piece of the pie.
Well, the event has now wrapped up for October 16th, 2014. Tim Cook has now left the stage. The copyright slate is now up, and they'll probably sew our pants off for putting it up. But
I'm gonna end with a quiz. GIF. How do you pronounce it?
oh, that's easy. It's GIF, Graphics Interchange Format.
So apparently, my boy Craig, he gaffed, and he didn't say GIF.
Probably called it GIF.
He called it a GIF, and people are mocking him on the internet.
And rightly so. The man who invented the graphics interchange format. This is a photo format. You see them now as animated GIFs.
Yes.
Back in the olden days, they weren't animated. The man who invented that file format, he himself calls it GIF, and put out a note saying that, folks, this is GIF, not GIF. Yet the rest of us went, wait a minute, the G stands for graphics, so it's GIF. So sorry, pal, I don't care if you've invented the technology, we're calling it GIF.
This is like Reitmans, the retailer in Canada. The family's name is Reitmans, but their commercials say Reitmans. Me and Michael Caine get into fights about this all the time. But notice how I spelled it out for you and didn't pronounce it, because I didn't know either.
Thank you very much for joining us here for our second Google Hangouts. And if you want to catch up on everything that's Apple related, be sure to join us at BNN.CA. For Amber Kanwar, I'm Michael Hainsworth. Thank you for joining us. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Did you kill the broadcast?